From the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network studios in Des Moines, this is Iowa Ag Matters. I'm Riley Smith. In today's show, Mark joins in on Senator Chuck Grassley's weekly ag conference call. I talk about replant decisions with Bill Backhaus of BASF, and special correspondent Russ Parker visits with Dallas Kime of Farm Credit Services of America. Now let's listen in with our hosts, Mark Magnuson and Dustin Huffman.
Well, welcome into another week of Iowa Ag Matters here on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. I'm Dustin Huffman with you here in Des Moines. Mark Magnuson with me as well. Mark, again, another gloomy day with a threat of rain and storms once again, as going to be talking about later on in the newsletter. We've needed the rain. There's no doubt about it, but I think everybody would be in agreement that we could turn the spigot off for just a little bit. While it's good for subsoil moistures, it's not getting us anywhere as far as getting the crop planted.
And also, Dustin, if you think back to last year, we don't want that pattern that we saw last year where we had a lot of rain all at once at the beginning of the year. And then at the end of the year, we didn't get any moisture. That last stretch of the growing season, it was very dry. By the time we were combining, we were throwing up dust in the air like crazy because it was so dry. So it'd just be nice if it could spread out a little bit, because all at once, yes, it does help to replenish the moisture, but then we can get more problems than we had to begin with.
Yeah, that's exactly it. We don't want any flooding going on. And I've seen water standing around town. And so, out in the fields probably just as well. And, looking at the soil temperatures right now, this is ideal. We're talking the low to mid 60s. 60 is the lowest, 65 is the highest, right? Actually, sorry, 66 is the highest in soil temperatures right now. So, everybody's ready to go. The ground is ready to go. It's just got to dry out enough for us to get into the fields and finish up the nitrogen applications, any fertilizers that got to be done. And then we can start getting that planting going, and then, let it sit for a while, let the crops go. And then, maybe that June, late May, early June, after spraying's done, if the post-emergent stuff is done, then maybe get another shot. But of course, we've been talking at length about the fact that there's another El Nino possibly on the way. Of course, can't wait to hear from Brad Rippey of USDA when I'm out in Washington. He's always got some great insight as to what is going on for the year, and could be switching to El Nino, which would mean more rain, a wetter but warmer summer. So, it's one of those things we're going to have to wait and see. We have to hit what's pitched, and, no one really knows, what's going to happen until it happens. We can have all the predictions in the world, but Mother Nature obviously has her own agenda.
And right now, of course, weather is one of those big things that we are watching. The other big thing, at least over the weekend, as it relates to the ag marketplace, what I'm going to talk with Greg McBride of Allendale about is the negotiations that took place over the weekend. You had the United States and Iran meeting in Pakistan. I believe it was Secretary Rubio that was leading the talks for the United States. And it was it seemed like they had made some ground. Then all of a sudden things kind of ground to a halt. There were 21 hours of negotiations between the two. And ultimately it comes down to the control of the Strait of Hormuz and then Iran's refusal to accept U.S. demands on nuclear restrictions. Those are the hangups right now. And that's why we saw President Trump talking about a blockade of the ports from Iran. And what is causing then the price movement in the ag marketplace today is kind of the reaction to the negotiations over the weekend.
Yeah, and it's also been heard that Iran's Navy has now taken up a position along their coastlines in case of any kind of ground troop invasion. So there is a lot of tension right now. It sounds like things kind of fell apart, as you said, but hopefully we can find some footing underneath this. Now, I know that puts pressure back on the markets, if we get a ceasefire that holds and a peace deal that holds. But the fact of the matter is, I think right now, 50, 60 cents a bushel is not worth as much as getting this taken care of and getting this out of the way and everybody kind of safe around the world again. So, that's just my take on it at the moment, but we'll see how this goes. There's a long way yet to happen in this 2-week ceasefire. We're going to go ahead and get that conversation started with you and Greg McBride of Allendale Markets. You guys talk about what's happening in those grain markets.
Joined today by Greg McBride of Allendale for the opening market discussion. Greg, what's happening with the trade in the grains?
Well, we've seen both sides of trade in the soybeans this morning. Old crop soybeans currently down a couple of ticks, nothing major. But the story over the weekend, obviously the negotiations in Pakistan. about the U.S. and Iran coming to their ceasefire and negotiating some of the terms of a peace agreement. Well, that fell apart, and we came into Sunday night with the president talking about a blockade of ships going in and out of the Strait of Hormuz, and that sparked the buying in the crude oil. Went up about $9. It gave us a very positive open in the corn, the beans, and the wheat markets. Wheat hanging on, still up anywhere from 14 to 15 cents. The corn still up 2 to 3 cents, but the beans kind of fading back towards that unchanged level. And really, it's a situation where there isn't a whole heck of a lot where you've changed anything in regard to the grain situation. So the corn and the beans still working in early planting at this point. The 13th here doesn't necessarily mean that we have any real major concerns for planting delays. So the positivity in the macro markets does help, but it's not something that you can really build off of to hold us up. We did see that the funds came in after the USDA report last week. We also saw that through Tuesday, the funds had come in and lightened up on their positions in corn, beans, and wheat last week. So I don't know that I necessarily would be looking for significant upside in corn or beans as we move forward. But I do think that if this weather condition where basically anything east of the Missouri River is going to see significant rains over the next 2 weeks, I think that'll be something to monitor. I don't think it's something to get excited about as far as major planting delays, because we know that technology allows us to plant fast. It's just a matter of, for right now, these jumps right now give us a reason that we could probably turn around and get some hedges or get some cash sales in place.
Your local radio station brings you the local news you depend on. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network complements that with ag news, weather, and market updates tailored for Iowa's farmers. Together, we deliver the best of both worlds, local connection and industry expertise. It's all to keep you connected with the heartbeat of the heartland. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, connecting rural Iowa with the news that matters to you.
Well, we are back on Iowa Ag Matters, and it is time to get into the end of last week's Ag Media Call with Senator Chuck Grassley. As Mark said earlier, it was postponed until the end of the week, and he had some talk about some stuff from the USTR. Mark has more.
At the end of March, the Office of U.S. Trade Representative released its annual report on foreign trade barriers. This list of countries with trade barriers serves as the basis for negotiation as well as trade actions by our government. Two countries with some of the longest lists of trade barriers are Canada and Mexico. While the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement, USMCA for short, is under review, farm groups have made it clear they want a 16-year renewal, and I've given a couple speeches on this subject on the floor of the United States Senate, so you can go to my website and listen to those if you want to. They're relatively short speeches. And then a reminder that I helped shepherd the USMCA through Congress while I was chairman of the Senate Finance Committee. Now, I want to note many of the barriers listed in the Trade Representative's report can be addressed through the processes that are already in place for the USMCA. The stable trading relationship between our three countries under the agreement has allowed Iowa ag exports to grow significantly, and I deal with that in those speeches I referred to. I hope Trade Representative Greer keeps that in mind as conversations on USMCA continue. I've made it very clear that I think that these negotiations are an opportunity for some tweaking of the agreement that was passed and been in place now for about 6 or 7 years, and it's under an automatic review. It's not something that's threatened because somebody is mad. It's just a one-time review before it's continued. But except for the tweaking, I've made very clear that the advantages of this agreement are so good for American agriculture as well as all segments of the American economy that we ought to get it extended for a very long period of time.
Stay up to date with the latest in the ag industry with Agribusiness Matters from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. Each weekday, we bring you the latest advancements in farming, from new precision ag technology to cutting-edge sustainable farming practices. Agribusiness Matters is also your source for the most relevant ag news, policy discussions, and insights that are shaping the future of agriculture. Tune in to Agribusiness Matters on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, where Iowa Ag matters.
Hi, my name is Ethan Smith, and I've been a certified crop advisor in Iowa for about 6 years. The Iowa CCA program is valuable to me because it helps keep me informed on new topics and research around the industry, including soils, insects, diseases, and much more. It's also a great way to network with others around the state and beyond. Iowa is known for its crops, and that's why we're here. To learn more about becoming a certified crop advisor, visit iowacca.org.
In rural Iowa, you need reliable information. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network brings you ag-specific content like market trends, weather outlooks, and policy updates that matter to your operation, while your local station brings you community news and consistent updates on what is happening in your area. It's a partnership built for the challenges of rural life. Your farm, your local station, and your friends at the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, where Iowa Ag matters. Find us online at iowaagnet.com. Time to run down the basis prices here on Iowa Ag Matters on this Monday, the 13th of April. I'm Dustin Huffman. Only seeing 2 elevators make any kind of price changes here today. Let's take a look at where they're pricing. ADM Burlington, 9 cents under on corn, $4.35. Soybeans, 30 cents under at $11.44. Cargill and Eddyville, 11 cents under on corn, cash bid $4.33. New Co-op Algona, 42 cents under on corn, $4.02. Soybeans, 70 cents under, cash bid $11.04. Ag State Sheldon, 27 cents under on corn, $4.17. Soybeans, 78 cents under at $10.96. Ag State Elta, 39 cents under on corn, $4.05 for the cash bid. Soybeans, 73 cents under at $11.01. Cargill Cedar Rapids, they're 12 cents under on corn, $4.32, but they're in the middle of their annual corn shutdown until the 17th. So soybeans are 25 cents under with a cash bid of $11.49. At 5-Star Co-op Nashua, they're 30 cents under on corn, $4.14. Soybeans, 62 cents under, $11.12. Lincoln Way Energy Nevada, 22 cents under on corn, $4.22. And ADM Des Moines, soybeans are 25 cents under, cash bid $11.49. New Co-op Red Oak, 33 cents under on corn, $4.11. Soybeans, 68 cents under, $11.06. Mid-Iowa Cooperative Green Mountain, 45 cents under on corn, cash bid $3.99. Soybeans, 78 cents under, $10.96. New Co-op Sheraton, 34 cents under on corn, $4.10. Soybeans, 68 cents under, cash bid $11.06. Waukon Feed Ranch, 42 cents under on corn, $4.02. Soybeans, 60 cents under, $11.14. New Co-op Glidden, 40 cents under on corn, cash bid $4.04. Soybeans, 70 cents under, $11.04. Innovative Ag Farley, 44 cents under on corn, $4 even. Soybeans, 70 cents under, cash bid $11.04. And at Cargill Muscatine, they're 16 cents under on corn, $4.28. Soybeans are 28 cents under, coming in at $11.46. Cash corn and soybean bids are subject to change without notice. Always check with your local elevator when making sales to obtain the most recent price. That's been a check of your basis numbers here on Iowa Ag Matters. Stay with us. We'll be right back after this message.
Stay informed with the closing market report from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, your essential summary of the day's market activities and their impact on the agricultural economy. Join us for timely updates and expert commentary on commodity prices and market trends with trusted ag market analysts from around the Midwest. Tune in every Monday through Friday on your local Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network affiliate for your daily market recap and insights to stay ahead in the ag economy.
Well,
we're back on Iowa Ag Matters, and Riley Smith had the chance to talk with Bill Backhaus of BASF, talking about the possibility of some replants, especially in the deep southwestern part of the state where some crops have already been put in. Riley Smith has more right now.
Riley Smith, Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, on the phone right now with Bill Backhaus of BASF, and we're approaching planting season, and with planting season comes with the decisions to replant or not replant, and we know how variable the weather can be. I mean, Bill, we just saw in southwest Iowa a lot of snow dumped earlier this week, but when it comes to those replant decisions, what are some of the things that you encourage farmers to look at when making that best decision for their operation?
Yeah, Riley. First and foremost, you never want to have a replant situation show up, but like we just said, the weather is unpredictable and causes a lot of concern when we're not prepared. So, first thing I like to say is just be prepared. Have a contingency plan. So, if you think about, I'll just segue to the war over there in Iran right now with everything going on and the contingency plans that the generals had in place to, rescue that downed airman. You think about all that stuff going into a replant as well, and I'll kind of tie that together. You got to be prepared. You got to have those contingency plans, and basically part of that is just scouting, right? You got to scout those fields. You got to evaluate your stands, just like you got to evaluate and recon everything you have in a war zone. You think about your field. There's a lot of things going on out there. You got bugs, you got diseases, you got waterlogged soils. And all those different things can happen, So you think about an early replant situation and or early planting. So actually, we do have a lot of crazy to say. We do have a lot of soybeans, in the ground already here in Iowa. And I've heard of a little bit of corn, not a lot, but a little bit. And with all the weather that's going on, if we have some cool and wet soils, which is kind of what we have going on now, that's actually better than if we were to turn hot and wet. That is a bad thing for a seedling to try and grow through and get out of the ground, because that kind of increases the incidence of more diseases and insects and things like that. So, but all those things are all around scouting, evaluating your stands, really assessing those soybean stands, assessing those corn stands, really to have a really good understanding of what's out there. But the main thing is really to wait. If that weather event happens, that freeze, that frost, that hail, that flooding, whatever it shows up, we got to wait 3 to 5 days after that stress event, really to let the Mother Nature take its course and really let those plants, really kind of get going back out of the funk that they may be in, and allow us to have a better evaluation. So.
And you'd mentioned, you never want to make that replant decision, but it tends to happen every year. And with those farmers who have already got some of that crop in the ground, we're looking at quite a bit of rainfall here soon. And then honestly, in general, for this season, we've got, they call it a super La Nina. But with all of that, are we already looking at like, hey, you're probably going to have to be prepared for some of that excessive rainfall to maybe make those tough decisions?
Yeah, and I think, Riley, as you think it through, it's anything is possible. It's just being prepared. But once we get out there and we evaluate what we have, if we have already, put some seed in the ground, we've got to look for that soft, discolored seed, make a decision on that. Or if it's still firm and still healthy, we start doing that. But it goes back to that scouting. This rain, let's say we do get a window here in a couple weeks, and we get a lot of crop in, and then that weather turns on us again, and we get some soil crusting that goes on. So that's a big part of it too. And don't be afraid to pull that rotary hoe out and get that out there, especially on corn and soybeans. Soybeans are more critical for that, to get out there earlier and pull that trigger a bit earlier. So one other thing I do like a couple other things, but one other main point I like to bring up is just think about this year, but it has to go back to last fall. Think about the seed quality. So there's a lot of concerns over even corn and soybeans of just really seed quality and germination. So we want to have that best quality seed that we put out the first time, and then let's say we have to do this unfortunate replant decision and find some seed that I really want that certain hybrid or that certain soybean variety, or I got to have that. But if that's the one I get, because of all the good stuff that's taken already, I may be a lower germination. And so that's a concern that you have to think through as well. You definitely want to have a high quality seed to go back in and do that replant with. And I think that's one of the biggest piece of that puzzle as well to just, again, go back to what I said, be prepared, evaluate those stands, continue to scout, look for diseases, look for a lot of insects, see what you have on seedling diseases, and then really think about the calendar. Think about what you have out there, what date it is, and how that influences, replanting that corn and soybean decision. And then the other one that really comes up is herbicides. So let's say I've already got that herbicide already out there, sprayed on, whatever crop I have. What's my crop replant restrictions on that? What am I able to go back into with that? Let's say I get really late and I don't want to replant corn and I want to go back to soybeans for some reason. The herbicide that I have down is going to allow me to do that. Or I've learned the hard way on going in with some corn, and let's say we had to replant that cornfield, and it's a no-till situation, and you can't go out there and till it. It's got a certain herbicide tolerance, and you say, well, I can't use this herbicide to kill it. I can't use that herbicide to kill it, so I choose to use this other herbicide to kill it. Well, lo and behold, we didn't read the true label on that thing, and it had a crop rotation replant restriction for corn as well. And make a long story short, replanted corn into it, and about 7 days later, or about 14 days later, corn came up, and then it started dying because those roots got into that herbicide and actually killed it again. So just my point is make sure you understand what you're going back into and make sure you read the label.
All right, Bill, lots of great information today. For anyone who'd like to get in touch with a BASF expert and learn more about those decisions or anything else for the crop season, how can they do that?
Yeah, you can just reach out to your local retailer. They have a pretty good connection to all of the BASF reps throughout the area, state of Iowa, and or just hop on to BASF.com, and you can actually find basically where we're at there. So.
Your local radio station brings you the local news you depend on. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network complements that with ag news, weather, and market updates tailored for Iowa's farmers. Together, we deliver the best of both worlds, local connection and industry expertise. It's all to keep you connected with the heartbeat of the heartland. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, connecting rural Iowa with the news that matters to you.
This is the Midday Market Update on Iowa Ag Matters. I'm Mark Magnuson, joined at midday by Justin McKinney of Comstock. Justin, what's happening with the trade in the grains?
Well, we're starting the day off here about 3 3/4 higher on the old crop corn. December corn up 3.5. Soybeans down 7 3/4 on the May contract, and November's down 2.5 as we speak. The corn market's probably mostly following the wheat trading 15 higher on the Minneapolis, Chicago trading up about 8.5, and Kansas City up 22.5 this morning. So got a pretty exciting wheat trade going on as we move forward, pulling the corn with it.
And Justin, of course, the big news over the weekend was the negotiations with Iran didn't get to the endpoint that they were hoping for. So right now, a lot of uncertainty, and that would be reflected in the grain markets, I'm sure, at least for the foreseeable future, won't it?
Absolutely. You look at that oil market here today, up about 579. That thing has been all over the page. We're at the top end of the trading range within a buck, which seems wild to say, within a buck at the top end of the trading range. But as developments happen over there, whether we block it or we don't, I would imagine you're going to have to see some sort of risk premium in that wheat, which is probably somewhat today, and pulling into the corn. We also do have crop conditions out tonight. So we do have a hard red wheat story going on with the drought in the western part of the belt, but we'll see how those crop conditions shake out. It's kind of early on the wheat. We got to kill that thing a couple times in the course of a year before it really matters.
What's happening on the livestock side of the trade here at midday?
We got feeder cattle trading just slightly weaker, down 17.5 cents in the April, but May on out is trading 30 cents to 85 higher. Fed cattle trading down about 75 in the April, and the deferred months trading, unchanged to slightly higher. Looking at the cattle market, as we move forward, I really thought we'd see a little bit more enthusiastic cash trade last Friday. Bids were a couple bucks better. Yeah, at the end of the day, it seemed a little lackluster for all the hype coming off the previous weeks. Huge move in the cash, unable to pull through. So we're going to get our eye on that as we move into probably Wednesday on this week when the cash trade gets started. We have boxes up $1.07 on the midday today on the choice, and the select's up $3.17. However, only 31 loads.
Start your weekend with insight and inspiration on Weekend Ag Matters from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. Every week we bring you an in-depth look at the top ag stories with a recap of the week's biggest headlines. Join us for long-format interviews with industry leaders and policymakers, giving you insights you won't hear anywhere else. And don't miss our faith-based segment with Russ Parker, Food for Thought, offering a perspective that helps bring clarity and focus to our lives. Make Weekend Ag Matters part of your weekend routine. Tune in every weekend on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network.
May corn up 3 3/4 at $4.44 3/4. December corn up 3 1/2 at $4.75 3/4. May soybeans down 7 3/4 at $11.68. November soybeans down 2 1/4 at $11.55 1/2. May soybean meal up $2.40 at $3.34.20. May soybean oil up 4 cents at $67.13. On the Merc, April live cattle down 93 cents at $250.85. April feeder cattle down 18 cents at $373.98. May lean hogs down 63 cents at $94.90.
That was a check of the midday markets on Iowa Ag Matters. I'm Mark Magnuson.
We're back on Iowa Ag Matters. Time to get into the livestock side of the marketplace, find out what's going on in those cattle and hogs. A little bit of a rough morning for both of them. Mark Magnuson sitting down once again with Greg McBride of Allendale to tell us what's happening as we start the week.
What's happening on the livestock side of the markets?
Well, we heard over the weekend that JBS is and their union have come to a temporary agreement to end their strike. Hasn't necessarily been ratified or anything like that, but they had gone back to work as of last week, and we'll see if they can get this agreement pushed through. That'll open things up for additional slaughter. But the big thing that we'll be watching this week is that you've got cattle on feed coming up at the end of the week. This is one of those where we're not looking at anything that's a major situation as far as bullishness. So this has been these reports have been bullish for the last couple of years now. The on-feed number looks like it's going to be right in line with where we were at last year. It's not insanely bullish because we're just holding those on-feed numbers steady. Placements do look like they're going to be down a little bit, so that'll be something to watch. But those marketing's also on the lower end of things. So at this point, that report does look like it could lean to the friendly side, but not nearly as friendly as what we've seen over the previous few years.
What's happening with the hog side?
Hogs are kind of just meandering through. We're looking for an opportunity to see those summer months getting back up into that 110 to 112 area, but we've seen a sell-off here over the last few days. You have seen some of the pork numbers backing off. Exports are in line with where they need to be. They're not great. They're not falling apart, but just a 4 to 5 day slide here, just a little bit at a time. You saw the bigger numbers on Tuesday. They dropped off when everything else had fallen off. But I think the big thing to watch here is that the hog numbers and the cabbage hogs should help to drive us back up. But for right now, they have taken a step back and retested recent lows.
How can our listeners get in touch for more marketing information?
Give us a call at 800-2-MARKET. That's 800-262-7538.
Greg McBride of Allendale, my guest here today. Thanks so much for the time and have a great start to the week.
Thank you, Mark.
Hi, my name is Ethan Smith, and I've been a certified crop advisor in Iowa for about 6 years. The Iowa CCA program is valuable to me because it helps keep me informed on new topics and research around the industry, including soils, insects, diseases, and much more. It's also a great way to network with others around the state and beyond. Iowa is known for its crops, and that's why we're here. To learn more about becoming a certified crop advisor, visit iowacca.org.
$400 bill on that pool table is going to be sold.
In rural Iowa, we know you're sold on your local radio station. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network partners with local Iowa stations to deliver the latest in agriculture news, including grain elevator prices, market reports, and ag policy news. Trusted local voices, trusted ag content. This message is brought to you by your friends at the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, where Iowa Ag matters.
We're back on Iowa Ag Matters, and of course, farm lending and financing has been one of the big things we've been talking about here in early 2026. Russ Parker had a chance to talk with the folks at Farm Credit Services, and he files this report.
I'm with Dallas Kime. Dallas, if you can introduce yourself and tell us the role that you play, and then we'll start with some conversation.
Sure, Russ. Well, thanks for coming and spending some time with us. My name is Dallas Kime. I'm the Senior Vice President of Commercial Lending at Farm Credit Services of America. And I work with a group of lenders that are in a specialized lending group, kind of some of our middle markets play. And we're in about 8.5 states now, is kind of the geography that we cover. And in various parts of our industry, so in the protein space. So our lenders in the group that I work with, we work in the swine industry, the beef industry, and then we also work with agribusinesses and certainly our crop production. So we kind of cover it in all angles.
Yeah, when we were talking earlier, I think it brings a kind of a distinctive maybe relevance talking about some of your background and your family's background in the business.
Well, that is true. But, so I grew up in the cow-calf business up in north central Nebraska, and I'm still engaged with that. That's where a lot of my passion is. But I also have a lot of passion for adding value to the ag industry. And I've found that this career in ag lending, I've been with Farm Credit, I've been in the commercial banking space, and I get a lot of reward for working in this space, seeing people be successful, and I guess that's and helping young people grow, helping operations move forward, helping people come into our industry that want to play in the ag lending space. So anyway, I'm wandering off a little bit of topic, but it's just I think when you're in this business to be good at it, you have to have a passion for it. And you got to have a mission to help others get better. And I think that's something that we do a lot of at Farm Credit.
So one of the things that I think maybe on that topic is basically helping people be successful in a way that includes good business decisions. Maybe let's talk a little bit about what that looks like, especially in a maybe a little larger kind of an operation.
Well, these are businesses we work with today, and it doesn't matter whether they're small or large, but I always say in the space that we work on, folks are trying to decide to get off of their horse or off of their tractor and get into the office, okay? And sometimes that's a hard lever to pull, all right? And so so anyway, when you're growing, when you're trying to bring new folks into the operation and so forth, it's a real challenge. I don't know. The one thing that we continually see, and I know you understand this, but I always said ever since the first two homesteaders, we've had consolidation in agriculture, right? And that continues. It probably continues at a faster pace now than what it once did. There's some reasons for that, I would say. One is, now if things are a little more stressed, we'll see a few people exit and others will assume that responsibility. And I think it's also an opportunity maybe for some folks that are more mature in the business to decide this is a good time to get out. So anyway, that's kind of what I see a little bit as a vision and an opportunity when we move forward in this. I don't know, people are spending, it seems like thinking that things are stressed, and there are some areas where that is the case. But I just look at it as an opportunity. You know, if I was a young person today, I can't think of a better thing to do than get into agriculture. You know, I mean, there aren't a lot of young, you know, that just there's a lot of people are exiting.
So my guest today has been Dallas Kime with Farm Credit Services. Dallas, we really, really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you.
Thank you.
And this is Russ Parker reporting for the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network.
At the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, we deliver ag-focused content designed to complement your local radio station. From market updates to the latest ag news, our trusted farm broadcasters bring you the information you need while your local station keeps you connected to the heart of your community. And just like your local station, our broadcast team is Iowa-based, so we have feet on the ground across the state. Together, we're stronger for Iowa's farmers. This message from your friends at the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network.
You've been listening to Iowa Ag Matters here on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. Thanks for joining us to start out the week. And of course, we will be back again tomorrow. Thank you to Riley. Thank you to Dustin. I'm Mark Magnuson. You've been listening to the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network and Iowa Ag Matters. Join us again tomorrow for more here on the Iowa Ag Radio Network.